Now, don't forget, you can listen to Good Things. We are streaming live over at supertalk.fm. We're also streaming from that SuperTalk Mississippi app. We're always, too, on that local SuperTalk Mississippi radio station. But don't forget, you can watch us. We are on your computer, your mobile device. Just head on over to SuperTalk TV. You know by now, here on Good Things, we like to raise awareness on becoming a living donor. And today we've got a heartwarming story of how it all went right at home. So joining us is Miss Roni Hayes. She is the daughter to Stephanie Hayes, and she became her mom's living donor over 5 years ago now. So welcome to you both.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
So I'd have to ask, I guess it starts with Stephanie, how this sort of your journey all began. Obviously, there was an issue where you needed an organ or a kidney, but take us back to obviously prior to 5 years ago. Okay. What was your health journey like?
I was a perfectly healthy female, and on November 11th, we were installing a new electronic health record at the facility that I work at. Working a lot of hours, I thought I was tired. I was exhausted. I felt exhausted, a little bit of a cough. And so took a few days off, went to a walk-in clinic, and they said, well, we think you have pneumonia and a sinus infection, gave me some meds, sent me on my way. 2 days later, I still didn't feel very well. So I went back, and they're like, well, you sound better. Your blood pressure's a little bit high. And so I sent me back home, and then 3 days later, I had such shortness of breath, I couldn't even walk up the stairs. So I went to another walk-in clinic, and my blood pressure was sky high, and they did a chest x-ray, and lungs were filled with fluid, and they said you have to go to the emergency room. And so went over to the emergency room, had some labs done, and there's tests that they do for kidney function. And mine were really out of whack. Normal high is like 1.4. I was 14.6.
I would say that's a little high.
Yeah, it's a very high, and I was walking around. So I was diagnosed after a kidney biopsy and lab work with goodpasture's disease, and it's very rare. It's about 1 in a million people. They don't really know for sure what the cause is. So they typically say smoking, never smoked. Then they'll say fluorocarbons, nope, not around fluorocarbons. Pesticides, no, not really around those. And then the last guess is a virus. So they said it must have been a virus. I immediately went on renal dialysis. I had to go through something called plasmapheresis for 5 days. It's similar to dialysis, but they put you on a machine and they run all your blood through it, separate the clear part, the plasma from it, and throw it away, because that's what contains the antibodies that cause this disease. So that's the fastest way for them to get rid of them. So I did home dialysis for 18 months. I had to be on a chemotherapy oral drug, Cytoxin, as well as very high-dose steroids. For 6 months, I had lab tests done every month. They would not put me on the list or even evaluate me until I had no antibodies left in my system.
I was supposed to ask what took that so long.
Yes.
So, Miss Stephanie, so this all happened within like a week? From where you went in from shortness of breath to now you have this unfortunate Goodpasture's disease, like your life flipped and you're on dialysis.
Yep.
That's crazy.
It was very fast. It happened quick.
Would you have had to have had Goodpastures for a while and it was kind of incubating, or is it something that when it starts and hits, it just starts to hit?
Something triggered it. And I was like, well, I've been outside for 2 months, doing flower work, that sort of thing. Never smoked in my entire life. So it was just, they figured it was a virus of some sort that I had that triggered it. And when the Goodpastures is triggered, your immune system goes absolutely crazy. Similar to, they call it the cytokine storm, something that the COVID patients went through. And so your inflammatory markers just go off the wall, super duper high. So I was at a local hospital, and then when they decided I had Goodpastures, the plasmapheresis couldn't be done there, so then I was sent to Vanderbilt. Stayed at Vanderbilt, I had to do renal dialysis. Then I had what we call a peritoneal catheter inserted into my stomach, and that was for dialysis once I got home. But I had the big catheters out of your neck, hooked up to dialysis, went through plasmapheresis, and then my clotting factors started to mess up. So as Roni said, you were kind of
change the name from Goodpastures to Bad Pastures. I just don't think that's well.
It's named after Dr. Goodpasture, who studied at Vanderbilt and was studying the 1916 flu. And there were very similar symptoms and organ failures with this as there was with the flu. So that's why it's named Good Pasture, because of him. I called it cow pasture.
Okay, I was like, there has to be a better...
a load of, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
But it was quite an experience. I mean, I knew I was sick. I started getting confusion because the toxins, because the kidneys couldn't clear them. I was getting, confused. Sometimes people would say things I wouldn't remember it, or I'd say really off-the-wall strange things. I heard I was quite entertaining.
Roni, as the daughter, all this is happening so fast. I mean, you have a healthy mom. By this time, you're a little more grown. You're in school, or at least you're not a child this way. But still, that's your mom. What's it like for the family watching, the one that's usually the strongest head of the house going down so quickly?
So I was at Mississippi State when this happened, and she was back in Nashville. I think my sister had texted me and was like, Mom's going to the ER. And I was like, what? I'm 4.5 hours away. What's going on? And so I think she was like, everything's okay right now. I think I went home early the next morning. And honestly, all of it is kind of a blur, just the timeline. And I was like, Mom, I hope you've got these dates right, because that was a blur. But it was so hard with all the unknowns at first, because we were like, is Mom going to be okay? Is Mom going to make it? And I have 2 older sisters, so we kind of were going through all that together. Switching hospitals was scary. Talking to all these doctors was scary. I remember when she had gotten to the ICU at Vanderbilt, we had family from Michigan come, and this teaching team came into the hospital and was like, hey, do you care if we bring all these students in here? Your mom is a really interesting case. And I was
Thanks.
like, all right, let's do it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I don't know, but sure.
Yeah.
You never really want to be that person, although you at least get all the eyes and the, people are sort of interested in getting you to that point. To the point was, Stephanie, they had to get all of the antibodies, as you mentioned it, out. So then, was there hope that maybe if you got the antibodies out from the Good Pastures, or however, that it would, if it's a virus, that it would pass and your kidneys would have been left better? Or did you know from the beginning it was going to be shot?
I'm a nurse also, and I knew from the very beginning when we talked with the nephrologist that it was only going to be dialysis and getting me ready for a transplant. The little, I'm going to call it a membrane in the kidney that lets the bad stuff out, when you go to the restroom, and keeps the proteins and the good things in, was like Swiss cheese. It was just, the antibodies just went after it. So all the protein was flowing, out of my body. But no, we knew at that point that's what we were going to have to do. And
I heard 18 months. How long were you on dialysis prior to getting the green light that no more antibodies you could foresee for us?
Let's see, this happened in November. I had to be 6 months free, because I got tested in October, the following, what was it?
2 years or so?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, I did home dialysis. I did peritoneal dialysis, and personally, it worked for me. I went to work every day. I did not miss a day of work. And basically, every night you hook up to the machine, and it fills you with the fluid that the doctors calculate that you need. It stays, what we call dwell, in your belly or your peritoneal cavity for a while. And then the machine pulls it back out. So it's kind of like a washer, in and out throughout the night. And then you disconnect in the morning, cap off, shower, go to work.
And repeat the process.
Yeah.
What was it like getting the call? Like, okay, Stephanie, Miss, you can now get on the list. We can move forward with finding a kidney. Do you remember that day?
Yep. It was very, very, very exciting. So I was like, finally, just finally, I'm going to hopefully have a more normal life. I will say with peritoneal dialysis, if you want a normal life, if you can do it at home, do it at home versus the hemodialysis. I know some people can't because there's a lot of stuff that gets delivered every month at your home to, for you to do it yourself. We trained Roni on how to hook up. My husband knew how to hook up because when I first went home from the hospital, I still wasn't playing with a full deck,
right?
And so they kind of hooked me up every night and,
And they also hooked you up. One of them hooked you up with a kidney.
Yes.
So we will get to that and more coming up next here on
So
Good Things.
I was very excited.
Mississippi app. Hope you downloaded that. You can always find us too on that local SuperTalk Mississippi radio station, but don't forget to watch us. We are on your computer, your mobile device. Just head on over to SuperTalk TV. You'll see I'm not alone in the studio. We're continuing our conversation with Stephanie and Roni Hayes. Stephanie is mom, Roni is daughter, and she just walked us through her journey of literally within a week going from a healthy, human to one that's on dialysis. Took you about 2 years, but you finally got the green light, Stephanie, that you could be put on the transplant list. Did you think that you were going to go through the transplant, process via the list, or did you automatically start seeking potential living donors from those that you knew?
I never sought donors. My daughters sought donors. They put, messages, cute ones on Instagram and
What'd you say,
Facebook.
Roni? Hey, my mom needs a kidney.
Yeah, basically. My mom, I think it was my.
At first,
Yep.
when they were like, her best option is to be a living donor, my oldest sister and I were like, all right, how do we get started? What do we need to do? And so once we kind of got the green light, or she got the green light to be approved, my oldest sister had more, free time to donate. I was still in college. I was graduating. Hold on. Let me get my dates right. So when did you get approved to receive it?
Thought we said October.
October.
And then Lauren started testing right away.
Yeah. So my oldest sister started testing right away because I was graduating that May, and then I was going to graduate school in July. So I had just not enough time.
Yeah.
And so my oldest sister started the process. Unfortunately, one of her levels wasn't where they wanted it
Because
to
they
be.
really test you.
Yes.
I mean, it's
like,
not like a, hey, I got one spare one, you can take
Right.
it.
No.
They almost try, from what I've heard over the years on Good Things talking about living donors, they almost try to find a reason for you not to be. Like they look so hard for instead of just saying, we'll just take you, come on in. It's like they really want to make sure they should,
Right.
most do, make sure every T is crossed, I is dotted, that you are a legit, perfect candidate
And
for
she
it.
was like a great match, but there was just one level, which was still okay for her, but they were like,
They didn't want to jeopardize her.
Right.
That was their
So-
intent.
they ultimately declined her as a donor. And then at this point, it was the end of January. And I was like, okay, I know it's going to take a couple months to get things rolling. Let's get started now. So I was like, I don't know, almost a perfect match. Mm-hmm. And then I kept getting my blood work done. And so that was end of January. They called me on April 15th, which is her birthday, and they're like, hey, you're approved to be her donor. And I was like, great, let's schedule the surgery. I got to go to grad school. Let's get moving. And so I told her on her birthday dinner, or at
That's
her
great.
birthday dinner, that I was her match. And
Did you know she was going? Did you know they were doing this? Okay.
I knew it, and I had a very difficult time with it as a mother.
Yeah.
They've got their lives as a mother, okay? Not as a clinician or anything. They have their young lives ahead of them, and at the time I'm 60. I was sick at 58, and I'm like, and they're my children, and I'm like, no, I don't, no, you can't. We'll just, look and see if they can find matches. And my nephrologist basically scolded me, and he said, would you give away a Christmas present that your children had given you? And I said, well, of course not. And he said, then you have your answer. And I'm like, well, it's not exactly the same thing.
I was saying the same thing, but I was going to let you use your analogy.
So then my neighbor, who had donated a kidney to her husband, said to me, Steph, do not take away their joy.
Their opportunity to do that. Because, Roni, obviously, if you made it through all this time, you had made up your mind this is something you wanted to do.
oh, yeah.
Because if it's something you didn't want to do, you'd probably been continuing to post on Facebook and trying to solicit.
Somebody give her a kidney.
Solicit kidneys. But it's good to say, just because you are daughter, but you just shared a story, Stephanie, of a wife who obviously is not related. It's not necessarily relation that matters. I mean, it's just luck of the draw, really, from what I can tell. Anybody could be a match to anybody, or anybody could not be a match to anybody.
Right.
In that way.
Yeah, typically your children, are half and half. Dad, but these two have more of mama.
Have more mama in you. Why was it that you were more likely to get a kidney out of a living donor, Stephanie? Was it just because that was a better opportunity to find somebody, or was it just the list is so long you may have had to wait?
Oh, it was definitely quicker because the girls immediately were like, "We're doing this, Mom." As much as I said, "Don't do it," they were like, "No." And it could have been quicker had I been a normal, or not normal, but a patient who had maybe kidney disease due to diabetes or blood vessel disease. I wouldn't have had to go that extra 6 months, before I could be put on the list with the antibodies gone. So it was a little bit longer journey for me. But the weird thing is, I never went down that dark hole through this whole process. It was, I don't know, I had sense of humor. I'd have to do a manual empty of my dialysis at work during the midday. So I'd shut my door at lunchtime and, hang the bag and do whatever I had to do. Then you drain it back out and I'd get my scissors. I walk across the hall and our administrative assistant was right there. I'm like, "Hi, Tammy, I got to go to the bathroom." And we just both laugh about it, because it was just, that was the routine.
Mm-hmm. How long was it from green light to surgery?
Oh.
So green light was April 15th. We had surgery May 28th.
Okay, so that was pretty quick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then what was that experience like for you, Roni? Because now this is when it's kind of nervous for the one who hadn't gone through it or sort of needs it. So what was it like for you?
I think, so I was never nervous about donating it. And I would just, having to see her do peritoneal dialysis every night and be hooked up to this machine for 8-9 hours. And you have better quality of life, I would say, than people doing hemodialysis because you can have your normal routine, but she's still hooked up to this machine and she has to be there and has to do this. You can't miss a day, whatever. And so seeing some of her quality of life taken from her, I was like, okay, let's get this going. This is the stars are aligning. It's perfect timing. And I don't know. I was never nervous about it. I felt like it's kind of a routine surgery, and I kind of I trusted all the doctors, and it was a thorough process. They answered any questions I had.
How has your life changed? Because your mom was worried about you being younger.
Oh, yeah.
How has your life changed, if at all, after you recovered?
It hasn't. So I will say, I think my biggest concern before I donated, it was right when I had started working out and doing CrossFit, and I was like, when you first start something, you see all the changes and you're locked in. And I was like, I'm going to lose everything I ever had, everything I've gained. And then I found this group on Facebook of kidney donor athletes. And we all connected, asked questions, talked to people who had donated previously, asked about their recovery and all that. And I mean,
there's a whole community out there.
It's a whole community. And it was great to because, some doctors may not be super familiar with kidney donors that are athletes,
and active, and then you can come in and be your own advocate sort of that way in this. Stephanie, being a nurse, being a mom, knowing all the things, being your own health advocate, what is your sort of, message to just everyone about it all? In terms of living donors, don't be scared, take it, but also being the own advocate for your own health care.
I think for the living donors, what folks need to realize is when you're evaluated for a transplant, me as the recipient, I have my separate team of doctors and separate committee that meets, and the same for the donor. So there's no, what do I say, favoritism, or there's no, they don't know. They may know that she wants to donate to a parent. They don't know who that is. So I think for donors, that's just they're very much your advocate as a donor. They will not do anything to move forward if they feel, it's going to harm you. I'm very much an advocate for living donors. I mean, I watch her. She went on to grad school. She's competing in donor games. Amazingly, I'm 65 now. I have my quarterly labs done, right? My kidney levels are those of a normal person. Typically, after donation, the recipients don't have a low, mine's perfect. Now, she does have 2 arteries in her kidneys, so maybe that helps a little bit. I don't know, but she was unique in that manner.
What would you say to people on the fence about being a living donor, or if ever met with that opportunity to do what?
I would say slowing down your life for a couple months to recover pales in comparison to the quality of life someone will gain from getting a kidney.
Well, I love it. Thank you both for sharing your story. I think it's wonderful. Such a beautiful love story between mom and daughter.
Yep.
But it doesn't have to be that way. You can be a living donor to a stranger,
Yes.
right? So if you see
Yes.
the ad on Facebook,
Yes.
take it. All right, stick with us. We got more for you coming.